This is Morley College in Lambeth, South London. An adult education college whose story began at the back of the famous Old Vic Theatre in Waterloo. A pioneering institution which welcomed working men and women on equal footing. An iconic college created in architectural styles that span the 20th century. A home for art, music, and lifelong learning. A unique social history told through its architecture. This is the story of the creation of Morley College in Waterloo. London's Waterloo district in the late 1870s. The Royal Victoria Theatre was struggling. The theatre's lease was sold to new owners, members of the temperance movement. The venue reopened under a new name, the Royal Victoria Music Hall and Coffee Tavern, and offered a nightly programme of wholesome family entertainment at rock-bottom prices. Coffee tables replaced the theatre bars. The honorary secretary was a former artist turned social reformer, Emma Cons.
After she took over the lease of the theatre, Emma Cons discovered she couldn't make it pay, so she introduced other activities, one of which was ballad concerts, and then she introduced the penny lectures, but she invited these eminent scientists from all over the country to come and talk, and the seats were kept extremely cheap. Cheapest seats were a penny, hence the penny lectures. These became really popular and were packed out on many occasions.
But despite the success of the penny lectures, the venue still couldn't make ends meet. Emma Cons searched for a benefactor and found the wealthy textile manufacturer and philanthropist Samuel Morley, who gifted funds to keep the Temperance Music Hall afloat. Morley died not long afterwards and left a legacy which Emma Cons used to purchase the freehold of the Royal Victoria Music Hall. With ever-growing demand for the penny lectures, Emma Cons took a bold step and converted the back rooms of the building into teaching spaces and common rooms. The Samuel Morley Memorial College for Working Men and Women opened in 1889. At first, the college offered just 8 low-cost evening classes.
We are very lucky at Morley to still have all our original records from the 1890s. The most unique thing about Morley is that it admitted men and women on equal terms, and we think this was a first in adult education. What is apparent is the students came from all over London, not just the local area. The bulk were clerks, but we have some amazing other occupations like bookbinders, many different trades which no longer exist.
Over the next 30 years, the Morley Memorial College for Working Men and Women and the Royal Victoria Music Hall prospered side by side. The Royal Victoria was renamed the Old Vic and built a reputation for fine theatrical productions. But by the 1920s, the Old Vic Theatre Company was desperately cramped for room, and the building was in need of repair. Morley College was squashed too, having outgrown the back rooms of the building. The Old Vic turned to a highly successful theatre impresario who wrote a string of hit musicals, Sir George Dance. George Dance came to the rescue and gifted a fortune to the tune of £30,000. Dance's generous grant paid for most of Morley's new home, a dilapidated former boarding school, bought at auction, located just 5 minutes from the Old Vic, at 61 Westminster Bridge Road in Lambeth. The college refurbished the old boarding school buildings and added on a concert hall, gymnasium and refectory. The renovated building was opened in 1924 by the Prince of Wales, who remarked it was the first college he'd visited that had started life in a theatre. The building offered much more space, but the walls were drab and bare. 3 young artists, Edward Borden, Eric Ravilius and Charles Marney, were commissioned to create a series of murals in the refectory and the concert hall.
Morley College must have been quite keen on this at the time because there were murals being commissioned by the RA, and it would have put Morley on the same footing as the Royal Academy, and I understand that there was a lot of interest in it at the time. The images are particularly beautiful. They're really rather charming. It must have felt when you were sitting in the refectory that you were outside, really, because you have the sky, you have views out across the landscape to trees and the sea. One of the things I love about Morley is the amount of art that there is around, and also this confidence in art as something that was important and something that could influence the way you felt about your environment.
The inspiring new murals were a huge success and made Morley's name. The college attracted growing numbers of students in visual arts, humanities and music. It responded to growing demand by expanding the building.
In the 1930s, they realised that they were completely running out of space, and they also had the wrong type of space. So they commissioned an architect called Edward Morph to build a 2-floor extension in the very sort of typical style of the 1930s people were building at the time. It's a lovely building because of the way that these windows here, every other one is a French door, so these would have opened out as a courtyard. At the time, there was a real emphasis about having lots of fresh air and light in classrooms. The purpose of this building was essentially taking it from a converted boarding school into a proper college. It had 8 classrooms that were very much designed for the music and the activities that were going to go on inside them. A proper library that we still have much of today, and then of course one big centrepiece room.
The centrepiece of the 1937 extension was an elegant, purpose-built concert room, paid for by public donations.
Well, this is the Gustav Holst room. It was named after the famous British composer Gustav Holst, who used to be the director of music here at Morley. And the interesting fact about this room, which I actually very recently found out, was that when it was built, there were stars on the ceiling, which obviously were a tribute to Holst and his planets. We know that there were concerts by many prominent musical figures, like Benjamin Britten, for example.
But everything would change with the outbreak of war in 1939. During the Blitz, Lambeth suffered terrible bomb damage. On the 15th of October 1940, a single bomb hit Morley College. 57 lives were lost. The former boarding school, refectory, and concert hall were destroyed, along with the beautiful murals. Thankfully, the 1937 Edward Morph extensions survived. But despite the devastation, in keeping with the Blitz spirit, the college carried on providing classes, lectures and concerts during the war years. The post-war years were tough times. There was not much money around. It took 18 years of determined effort to secure the funds to rebuild the college. Architect John Brandon Jones was required to mirror the footprint of the old boarding school and create a new building to blend in with the surviving 1937 extension. It comprised of dance studios, art rooms, science labs, and a new common room.
Following the old building being destroyed in the war, the new building built 18 years later, I'd describe that as being classic mid-century modern style of that period. It has lots of light, high ceilings, which was perfect for what they were trying to achieve with the creative arts. We're in the ceramics studio now, and it absolutely is a perfect environment for that. You've got so much natural light in here. It would have been very different then. I think a lot of London would have been still quite bombed out. This was quite a poor part of London. There wouldn't have been any of the tall buildings around it that we have now. I think it would have made quite a statement at the time, considering what the area would have been like back then.
The artist, Edward Borden, returned to Morley in the late 50s to paint new murals in the refectory. The new murals were based on Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, paid for by the War Damages Commission. At the heart of the mid-century design was a large concert hall and performance space named after the college's founder, Emma Conns.
The Emma Conns Hall was the centrepiece of the 1958 refurbishment. So this was rebuilt after it was bombed during World War II. One of the centrepieces within the hall are the Martin Froy murals. There are huge, expansive murals that cover each of the walls, and they present scenes, I think, from day and night, sort of really highlighting the day and evening provision that we have here. They were painted to the music that was on in the hall at the time, and you really do get that feeling.
A new decade brought better times. Throughout the 60s, the college blossomed. It acquired a derelict pub next door and converted it into art studios and a new gallery space, Morley Gallery. Student numbers grew, and by the early 70s, Morley College once again needed to create more space. It hired a modernist architect, John Winter, to develop a narrow strip of land around the building. Winter designed a new extension, dubbed the Wrap.
Okay, so what we got here?
Oh, this is an album of some of our various buildings. This is one we really want to look at, which is the aerial view of the college after the Wrap was built.
I find this a fascinating building, even though it doesn't really look like much from the outside. It doubled the space of the college, and it was an approach to architecture that a lot of architects are doing now, which is what we would call now adaptive reuse. You're not knocking down the building and saying we need to rebuild something else. Now we would do it for sustainability reasons, but probably back then it was more about economics. But it's a really interesting and really difficult thing to do, I think, to grow a building by that much around the outside.
So as well as just ordinary classrooms, this Wrap actually provided a television studio and a college bar, which sadly has gone. I do remember it. It was painted red and orange. It was very striking and very useful.
In the early 80s, architect John Winter was commissioned to design a new art block and dance studio next to the college main building. Clad in corten steel with yellow trim, what became known as the Yellow Building was controversial in its day. Now Morley College had all the space it needed, and successive generations of adult learners came to enjoy life here. Then, decades later, in the 2010s, building work started again. The main entrance was remodeled.
There was a major renovation to really draw in people to the college more and open up the front space. I think it's far more welcoming now. You can now see into the foyer and what happens. The Morley radio is right on the street level, so people can see that we're broadcasting and that the space is active. And the lovely mosaics along the front as well. Our students with disabilities or those with a pushchair can now more easily access the building, and it really has lifted the space. We also installed a fifth plinth, which is part of a sculpture competition that we run every few years. At the moment we have a Patsy Hickman, and actually it represents all of the different activities and students and teachers that we have at Morley College. It really represents who we are.
In 2025, the Emma Conns Hall was modernised. Now a flexible and accessible performance space, fit for future generations of adult learners to enjoy. Today, Morley College in Waterloo is busy from day to night.
So the building is used Monday to Friday, all the way into the evenings, sometimes on the weekends, sometimes over the summer. We have thousands of courses here at Morley College. in music, visual arts, the humanities, the sciences. But it's also an exhibition space. We have the gallery next door. We've got lots of famous paintings, buildings, murals, our Bridget Riley. So there's always something to see. There's always something happening at the college.
135 years on from its humble beginnings at the back of the Old Vic Theatre, Morley never stands still. The spirit of Emma Conns lives on. A desire to build and rebuild, to enable and nurture lifelong learning. Today's college building in Waterloo is a series of inspiring spaces created by architects, artists, benefactors and educators across the 20th century. A vibrant adult education and cultural centre, open to all and with something for everyone.